Hey, Grace Hill, it's Pastor Cooper. I want to take a deeper dive into one particular aspect of Ruth chapter 4, which was the sermon text for the sermon this past Sunday. In Ruth chapter 4, Boaz is reaching out to an unnamed family member. Now, this unnamed family member had the obligation to redeem Naomi's property and to take care of Naomi and Ruth as the because this family member was the closest living relative to Naomi's dead husband, Elimelech. And in Ruth 4:1, Boaz refers to this man and speaks to him, and it says, Boaz said, "Turn aside, friend, and sit down here." Most of the English translations translate the expression similarly. Turn aside, friend. It's that keyword friend that deserves a little bit more attention. In the underlying Hebrew, the word is not friend. Instead, it's the two words poloni, almoni. Poloni, almoni. Those are two distinct words that rhyme, that function together to have a single meaning. We have the same kinds of expressions in English with words like hokey pokey or super duper or hurly burly. There are words that sound similar that function together. So, what is it that poloni, almoni means? Well, you use it whenever you are referring to something specific without naming it specifically. It's like if you're recounting a story and you're telling someone, so I was talking to them and I said, we're going to go meet at such and such a place. Well, even though you know the place that was named, and even though in the actual conversation you gave the real place, in the recounting of the story, you simply summarize it by saying such and such a place. This is exactly what we have going on here in Ruth 4:1. Boaz is in effect saying, turn aside, Mr. Such and sit down here. Boaz undoubtedly knew the family member's name, and in the actual conversation, no doubt used his real name as a sign of respect. But the author has recorded Boaz's conversation by omitting the family member's name, removing it from the story, and simply referring to him as Mr. Such and Such. The reason and the importance of this distinction comes into focus later in the chapter in Ruth 4:10. Here Boaz is speaking and he says, Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Machlon, I have bought to be my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brothers. So Boaz explains that part of the reason that he has purchased this land is so that Ruth could be his wife. And one of the reasons and one of the benefits of that activity is that the name of Machlon, the son of Elimelech, would be perpetuated. That God's command could be followed, that the land could remain inside the family line, and that an inheritance to the firstborn son could be given so that the line could continue. Boaz is following God's design, following God's command, that the name of Elimelech and the name of Machlon be remembered through his marriage to Ruth and Boaz's actions as a redeemer. But what about the unnamed family member? Well, we read of his response earlier in the chapter when he says, I can't buy this land. I can't be in charge of Ruth and Naomi. That would destroy my inheritance. That would destroy my fame. That would destroy my fortune. That would destroy who I am. See, he was so worried about his own name that he did not follow God's command and did not display compassion. And as a result, his name has been erased from the story forever to be forgotten. Now he's simply referred to as Mr. Such and Such. The man who was so determined to preserve his name has his name erased. And Boaz, the man who was so determined to follow God so that he could preserve the name of Machlon, has his name remembered for all time as a man of grace and compassion and honor, as a man who stands in the line of Jesus as one of his ancestors. Boaz, the great Redeemer who points forward to an even more perfect Redeemer in the name of Jesus. So in Ruth 4:1, when Boaz says, turn aside, Mr. Such and Such, we have further proof of the beauty and power of this story in the way that it emphasizes that what really matters is not seeking our own fortune and our own fame and our own security, but instead following the commands and principles of the Lord so that he may be praised forever, with the result that God is glorified And in this case, Boaz is remembered and honored for the faithful follower of God that he is.